And every day we were interrogated by a baron, an Austrian baron in the German army, threatening to shoot us, to kill us, to be put into an international prison camp, what the hell ever that may be, and was never told what we're charged with. Now, I'm saying, in that period of time on the farm, so often I say to the German that I work with, Hitler been predicted, Hitler's crazy. I said, wow, could I be taken because of that, or because I kissed a girl we kissed? Anyhow, 28 days in that cell, always constantly being interrogated and threatened. And finally they ship us to a Russian POW camp. Now you think the American camp is bad? You want to go to the Russian compound where they died like flies. Okay, so we're there, and it's around Christmas time, and the guard comes in and he hollers out, "Motherway, Rouse!" So they take Motherway out, and Charlie Keefe and I cried. We figured that's the end of Motherway. We're not going to see him anymore. The next day, Motherway comes back. What happened? They put him on trial. He had a Swiss representative. He was charged with having relation with this. Yeah, I'm going to say it. She was an ugly duck, this girl, Trudy. And he got the talk. He said, "Trudy, what's going on?" He said to us, that Trudy said the Gestapo made her say this. I don't know, for whatever reason. But anyhow, he was sentenced to 38 years in an international prison camp. But he's back with us. By the way, when I'm in this Russian compound, I'm with what they call a Straf company, which is a punishment group. 21 or 22 Americans, 23 French Foreign Legionnaires, about 20 Frenchmen, some Italians, some Serbs, some Poles, all in some kind of trouble or difficulty with the Germans. So we were there, oh God, I don't know how long. And on January 28th, see, we're up in the Eastern Front, the Russians made a big drive from the east, and we had to evacuate, okay? We had to evacuate that camp. Luckily for us, when we evacuated, in the bitter cold, they allowed us to make wooden sleds. Why? Because they had a pile of Red Cross parcels as high as the eye could see, the circumference of which was perhaps 2 blocks around. Thousands of Red Cross parcels that they should have been giving to the GIs that they never did. And I guess they were going to burn it because they don't want to leave it to the enemy. So they said to us in this Straf company, take whatever you can carry. Luckily for us, because that's what we subsisted on from January 28th to the morning of May 3rd when I was liberated, 5 days before the war ended. So anyhow, we took coffee, soluble coffee. We took cigarettes, which were like gold, chocolate bars, a bully beef, a cheese, and we carried as much as we could. And this is what we subsisted on. And we slept the first night out. It's raining and snowing. We had to sleep outside on the ground, huddled like animals under blankets or whatever. We had blankets. Okay. So we just marched, and every day that we marched, I had a little book. I used to put how many miles in this city. Unfortunately, I'll tell you what happened to that book a little while. And I remember the first place was called Pritzlav and Anklam. And by the way, each of these towns, or so many of them, were bombed to smithereens, and we were afraid that we were going to be victims of the civilians because the towns were really in shambles. So we just marched and marched and marched. For 3 months we marched, and finally we wound up in a little town called Mirov, M-I-R-O-W. And we just stayed there and stayed there and stayed there. In the interim, by the way, we're getting bombed and strafed by our own troops, our own planes, And I'm going to say this, it may sound stupid, but when I was in the front lines, obviously you could get killed, you could get hurt. But the philosophy is always going to be the other guy. So I wasn't totally frightened because I knew guys that went bonkers up on the line, okay, cried and all this kind of stuff. But when we're getting bombed, my knees literally shook. The holes that those bombs made, whoo, boy, terrific. Anyhow, now it's May 3rd, and, I remember distinctly that we had superiority of the year for a long period of time, but it was our pleasure. Let me go back a few minutes. Now, while we were on the march, I'll never forget the first time we saw a stream of bombers. We counted, would you believe, 1,000 planes And we knew at that time, we had a feeling that we were going to prevail in the war, you know. And one of the planes got on fire, and we saw chutes come out. And lo and behold, one of the guys that came out of that chute was taken to our group. So what we did, we took his name and serial number, because they took him away, and we, you know, we thought perhaps we could have some evidence that this guy was with us. Never heard him anymore after that, anyhow. But we're in this town, and we're in a big barn, a very, very high barn, tall doors, a slate roof, and, you know, German planes would go out, 3 or 4 planes would go out. 10 minutes later, they'd be coming back with only one plane and our planes on their tail. And we could literally see the machine gun fire. That's how close they were. We'd have to go behind barns or stone, so because we were afraid we could get hit with the machine gun fire. And
The overshoot.
Huh?
The overshoot.
Yeah, well, you know, they're shooting, whatever. And there was one occasion especially where they hit a German ammunition train about 20 miles away, and our roof caved in. And boy, you want to see guys take off out of the barn, those shoes, run out into the forest, the German guards, and of course we finally went on. And then eventually they got the roof back on. They allowed us to paint the POW sign on it, okay? Now, it comes May 3rd, and, oh, by the way, a couple of weeks before this event, I bought a pistol from a German, okay, for a box of raisins that I had from one of the Red Cross parcels, okay? Now, why did I buy this pistol? Which was stupid in retrospect. Even to this day, I say, oh, what a dope he was. But I bought it because we kept hearing that Hitler wanted all the POWs shot, and I've got records in here that you can see. And I said, well, hell, if I'm going to go, I would like to take some of these SOBs with me. So obviously I hid it, but if they found it, I was a dead duck. But comes the morning of May 3rd, 4:15 in the morning, I'm sleeping right near the barn door, and I hear the door squeak open. And I look up and I see the silhouette, and I know a silhouette of a German helmet as opposed to an American helmet. And sure enough, it's an American guy. And I leaped with joy, and all these guys that got, I don't know, what, 100 guys or whatever we had in that punishment group, crazy with joy. And we're liberated 5 days before the war is over.
What happened to the Germans that were guarding?
Well,
They
you know
ran
what?
off, huh?
By this time, you know, there was weapons all over the place, and the Germans, they knew that they were going to lose. There's no question. In fact, for weeks before, we used to try to talk to the German guards, which are all elderly guys, you know, to kind of give up. And then they weren't as mean to us towards the end of the war. But anyhow, May 3rd, 4:15, we're liberated. So the lieutenant wanted to know where the captain was in charge of our punishment group. So I and another guy went. We told him where the lieutenant, the captain was. We went to his house, aroused him, and he turned over his pistol to our lieutenant. And bingo. Now, up the street from where we were in the barn, there was like 600 of the political Jews and political prisoners. Those poor souls. You know, we were bad off, but nothing like them. So when we're liberated, obviously they're liberated, and you want to talk about retribution. These people want to take retribution out on the Germans, and there's gunfire all over the place. I said to the Lieutenant, please get us the hell out of here before we get killed now. So he stuck us on trucks and took us somewhere out of that little town. Now, I'm in a big area where there's just literally hundreds and hundreds of POWs, American, English, Canadian, French, you name it, a whole ton of guys. And the colonel gets up on the stand, he said, look guys, we don't have enough transport to get you west, but take whatever vehicles you can find and just head west. So with that pistol, you remember I told you about the pistol? A German car came by with 3 people in it, and I stopped the car, I said, get your behind out of there, it's mine. I took their car, okay?
You carjacked them.
I carjacked them. I took their car. So we formed this convoy. There's all kinds of vehicles, Hamtracks, trucks, motorcycles, cars, my car that I took from the Germans, and we get a convoy going west. I don't know where, but it's west. As we're moving along, our car with Joe Blassie and Noah Osborne, who was driving, the car conks out. So we're stopped. Motorcycle guy comes and says, you want us to stop the convoy? You can jump in the truck. We said, no, we'll take our chances. So sure enough, were on the side of the road. In those days, the hood of the car was pulled up from the side, if you guys remember, and I'm sure you guys, some of you remember. So we played around with the carburetor, and of course we don't have carburetor anymore. We took the head off, put a handkerchief over the carburetor, and the car started. Okay, so bingo, down we go merrily down the road where we saw the convoy. But we lost the convoy. They were so far ahead of us. So what did we do? We just merrily went on, kept going west. I wound up, the three of us, crossing the Elbe River over a pontoon bridge.
Wow.
The Elbe River in this car, and I wound up in an English zone. Okay? So now I'm with the English, and they give us some food. So I said to Noah Osborne and Joe Blassie, let's go to town and see if we can harass some of these SOBs for what they did to us. So Joe Blassie, he was kind of chicken. He didn't want to go, but Noah came. And, you know, it's pitch black. It was kind of stupid of me to even suggest that, because it's dark, and, you know, you're getting challenged. Every so often you'd be challenged. Halt, who goes there, and you'd have to identify yourself. And anyhow, we see a German guy, and I said to Noah, let's follow him. Believe me, I'm the softest pussycat you ever saw. I couldn't hurt a fly, and I had no intention of hurting this guy. But let's scare him. So, by the way, when I ran into him, I said, "Wie viel ist die Uhr?" I said, "What time is it?" He went like this. I said, "Off with the watch. You guys took mine. I'm taking yours." I took his watch. So he started walking, and Osborne and I, we followed him. He went a little faster. We went a little faster. Finally, he ran, and we ran. But we weren't going to hurt him, seriously. He ran over a fence, and that was the end of it. And now we get to a kind of an indelicate part. I'm going to tell you part of this, okay? It's a true story. I think it warrants me. I don't know, maybe not appropriate. But as in this town, we ran into a couple of English and Canadian POWs, and as they accosted, they said, "Hey, Yank," should I say this? Yeah, I'm going to say it. "Hey, Yank, do you know where the brothel is?" Oh, he is pretty, what, 20-year-old kids, you know. Where's the brothel? Well, anyhow, I'm going to skip a little bit. Okay?
Yes, we're running out of time.
Okay, anyhow. We go back, and I get a ride in a C-47, go west, and after a short period, I get another ride in the B-17, and I wind up like Teddy in Camp Lucky Strike, okay, where they fed us like crazy. The food was incredibly good, okay. They want to send me to Paris or London on pass. I said, "No way, Jose. I want to go home so my family could see me." And I got on a ship. 4 days later, I got into Newport News, the point at which I shipped out, and back home on American territory. Every time we went somewhere, they played "Don't Fence Me In." It was very appropriate for the POWs, right? So where the heck was I? I was in, I forget the camp, but
Would they send it to Camp Kilmer?
no, it was.
Camp Dix?
Camp Patrick Henry. That's the point at which I shipped out of. So they send me home. Now it's June 19th. I arrived in America. I get a 75-day furlough, after which the war is still raging in Japan, but I wait until August. And then I get a 2-week rehabilitation to Camp Lake Placid. Beautiful 2 weeks. Beautiful girls serving us, cottages, and the best of food and all that. And now they're starting to get people out with points. And I have the 58th Street Army base like 20 blocks from where I live and moved where I live. And I said, "Hey, why don't you send me there?" But lo and behold, they sent me to Fort Benning, Georgia. It happened to be the best facility I was in. But I stayed there for a month, and then, bingo, they shipped me out. They sent me home, and now I'm out of the service, okay? So
Ralph,
that's basically my story. Now, I have some stuff.
You have some stuff here. Did you want to share it?
Yeah. Now, you see this?
Brian, if you have any questions, you can ask.
These are photos of the 48 Americans that were on the farm that the Germans cleaned us up and took pictures of us for propaganda purposes. That's the 48 guys in there, okay? This is a sign, by the way. This is a sign where people trying to escape, and the Germans said, "You know, this is no game. You're going to get shot if you mess around, try to escape."
Is that your picture?
No, that's not me. I'm in one of these. I'm in one of these photos. I'm in one of these.
What else you got?
Okay, in 1947, one of the guys that was with me, remember I mentioned the French Foreign Legionnaires?
Yeah.
Well, he was coming to America in 1947. I'm on the corner of where I hang out, and I read this article about Kurt Steiner, the French Foreign Legionnaire, who's coming to America. So I went to his aunt and uncle, and I identified myself. And then when Kurt came, into this country, we were buddies until he died. Okay. In 1952, I gotta show you this. I got this letter. This letter, it's from an English woman. Her name is Cicely Mellor, 1952. I don't know from Adam, but she writes in the letter that she took a cruise on a French line, the SS Liberté, which is a French cruise line from France to the United States, and she ran into Charlie Patel, who was a French prisoner of war, who I met in the remember I told you I was in the jail in the prison camp?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Charlie was in the jail in the prison camp also. This is Charlie Patel.
And that's quite
This is Charlie Patel. He was a French prisoner of war, okay? Now, he was the maitre d' on that SS Liberté. So, as a result of this letter from this English woman, I got to meet Charlie when he came into port, okay? And this was my girlfriend at the time. This is Charlie Patel, okay? And every time the ship came into port, I worked on Varick Street. I used to go up and have nice lunches up there. This is all part of the stuff, okay?
Ralph, did you ever find out what happened with the girls?
Yeah, well, I don't have time. I wish I could tell you the story because it's so interesting. This is, you want to show this?
Sure.
That's Hitler and Goering. That's the article confirming that he wants to kill all the POWs. Okay? Okay. This is this guy right here, Charlie Buffneck. I forget his name. He died on the march. One of the kids on the march. He died on the march. Okay. And this here is an article. This is an article when I was at my condo in Florida. I ran into a couple of ex-POWs that were with me on the farm. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff. And by the way, one of the German women who was on the farm contacted me in 1996, and we exchanged photos. In fact, I have a copy here, if I can see. This is so interesting. I wish I could tell you. Somewhere.
It's a photo of the girl?
A photo of the girl, what she looked like then and what she looks like now. Here it is.
Oh,
This is, her name is Louisa Panza.
And where did you meet her?
She was a girl, a woman that worked on the farm. She was a young kid. She was in the employ of one of our CIA guys.
is that the one you kissed, Ralph?
No, that was another one.
Yeah. No,
So
when you
anyhow-
said working on the farm, that was in Italy, right?
No, in Germany. She's a German. She's a German woman that lived and worked on the farm. And with the help of an American general, she contacted me in 1997. And we've been corresponding ever since.
What was the most outstanding event or person that you encountered during your wartime experiences?
Would you repeat that question?
What was the most outstanding event that stood out in your mind, or person that stood out in your mind?
Well, you know what? There were so many incidents, but I think the one thing I remember so clearly is that in the French Foreign Legionnaires, there was one guy. His name was Sanders, Corporal Sanders. He was a captain in the German Navy in World War I. Now, again, he somehow wound up in the French Foreign Legion with Kurt Steiner and these other guys, and he was captured in Africa. And he was I thought he was so brilliant. Maybe I was a young kid, and I was. And I remember he taught me how to play bridge. He was teaching me French. He taught me a number of things, and I thought he was a brilliant man. And here he was, a captain in the German Navy in World War II. Now he's in the French Foreign Legion, a prisoner of the Germans. and I thought he was just a wonderful human being.
During your experiences as a prisoner of war, did you ever really feel that your life was going to be terminated?
Many, many times, especially, I got ahead of myself in so many keys because I know time is of the essence. But, I told you about how we marched out on January 28th. The first day out on the march, they pulled out a French guy and machine gunned him to death in front of us, okay? Not a pleasant experience. One of the guys in our group, Staff Sergeant Nicosia, he had beat up a German guard. He had a trial and was sentenced to be hanged. So he thought he was going to be next. And every time we marched in the woods, they would be on the flanks, and we thought we were going to be machine gunned to death, okay? You talk about, did you think you were going to survive? No, I did. I honestly thought they were going to kill us all. But we survived. That's obviously.
And that'd be a terrible way to live.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the memories will never go away.
Oh no.
Never go away. Never. And I'll say this too. Some years ago, the VA sent me to a sleep-wake disorder clinic in Cornell Medical Center up at the White Plains. And had a neurologist and a couple of psychologists talk to me, fill out papers, went through all the electrodes on the body, go to sleep, how many hours did you sleep, et cetera, et cetera. I told them I think I slept 4. They said, you're right, you only slept 4. And yes, you have a problem. They recommended I get out of the therapy groups that I'm in at the VA hospital. We meet every Tuesday with a psychologist. However, the prevailing thought of psychology is talk it out. But how could you forget the memories if every week you're talking about the experiences?
Right.
Okay? So, but any other questions? I know time is up. To
You have a question?
Oh, no,
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Ralph, I want to thank you very much for sharing your experiences. It's been something.
I
to
wish I
listen to.
could have been more detailed because there's stuff in
Been
there.
very
You did
detailed.
great.
Up to leave.
You did great.
Okay.
Very
Thank you.
good.